in distress for Christ's sake, for when I am weak, then am I strong. The Message translation says it like this: because of the extravagance of those revelations, and so I wouldn't get big-headed, I was given the gift of a handicap to keep me in constant touch with my limitations. Satan's angels did their best to get me down. What he did, in fact, but was push me to my knees. No danger then of walking around high and mighty. At first, I didn't think it was a gift, and I begged God to remove it. 3 times I did that, and he told me, my grace is enough. It's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness. Once I heard that, I was glad to let it happen. I quit focusing on the handicap and began appreciating the gift. It was a case of Christ's strength moving in me, on my weakness. Now I take limitations in stride, and with good cheer take these limitations that cut me down to size. Abuse, accidents, oppositions, bad breaks. I just let Christ take over. And so the weaker I get, the stronger I become. Just look at your neighbor and say, his grace is all I need. Say it one more time. His grace is all I need. Now, when I was preparing, when I received the topic that I was to minister on, I began to ask the Lord what it is that he wanted to say, as I'm sure my other colleagues in ministry did the same thing, because I heard the word grace, and instantaneously when you hear a particular word, you instantly go to particular scriptures that focus on that word. So naturally, this was the first one that came to me. However, I couldn't make the correlation between grace and being born with a purpose. I couldn't connect the two. Because see, my seminary mindset, being born with a purpose, speaks to predestination in a sense, as if to say that some people are destined for hell while others are destined for heaven. I didn't like the way that sounded, because we serve a God who comes in and saves all if they're willing to be saved. Okay, so I started thinking about it again, and I looked at this particular verse, and the verse just wasn't making sense to me. Now, the way most people have presented this verse over the years is they said that Paul now had a particular sinful affliction that he just couldn't get over. He couldn't keep his flesh under subjection. And so now the way the text would read was that God inflicted Paul with a sinful affliction. But that didn't make sense to me. Why now would a loving God inflict us with something that would ultimately disconnect us from him? That didn't make sense to me. So I started thinking some more, and then I went to my Facebook page, and if you read it, I typed in what I was going to be ministering from, and as I began to type, it dawned on me exactly the burden that Paul was talking about. So I began to type, and I sought the Lord 3 times, and I said, God, take this burden away from me. Take the responsibility of this assignment away from me. And then it dawned on me. The burden now that Paul was speaking about was being called as the apostle to the Gentile nation. The very thing that